It's when you call out my name. Love is in the air. Love is in the air. Love is in the air. In the rising of the sun. Love is in the air. When the day is nearly done. And I don't know if you're an illusion. Don't know if I see it true. But you're something that I must believe in. And you're there when I reach out for you. Love is in the air. Everywhere I look around. Love is in the air. Every sight and every sound. And I don't know if I'm being foolish. Don't know if I'm being wise. But it's something that I must believe in. And that's there when I look in your eyes. Love is in the air. Love is in the air. Oh, 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 oh. Love is in the air, in the whisper of the tree.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our reversed conversation today. My name is Aparna Jain. I'm part of Group Human Resources and work with a team called Our People Studio. Our focus is to be in the service of talent across the group. I'm also the program director for Bluemint, the flagship early career talent program. So the word mentorship usually conjures up images of wise, gray heads thoughtfully sharing lessons learned through a life with battle scars and victory medals and whatnot. Can it look like anything else? After all, hasn't learning always flowed from more senior people, more junior ones? Can the generations actually learn from each other and leverage their potential? This November at Group HR, we embarked on the biggest reverse mentorship experiment yet. The participants of Bluemint, the CMTC flagship and early career leadership program for Tata employees with 4 to 10 years of experience, were mentors to more senior leaders from Tata Motors undergoing their own leadership journey. The result? Hundreds of hours of insightful, thought-provoking, and vibrant conversations happened, and reverse mentorship relationships were built. These span topics ranging from managing diverse teams, personal brands, data analytics, and blockchain, communication, and whatnot. The senior leaders came back invigorated, more connected with the world around them, and honestly building bridges across the so-called generational differences. The mentors came back with incisive leadership insights and a deeper understanding and appreciation for challenges that senior leaders may go through. So I'm delighted to have two senior leaders from Tata Motors today who are mentees on the program, as well as two Blueminters who were the mentors and have all walked the talk. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you today Mohan Savarkar, VP Product Line Tata Motors, Ramakrishna Bhat, Senior General Manager at Passenger Vehicles Tata Motors. They were both the mentees, as a part of a large cohort that very bravely put up their hands with it. And on the other side, the mentors, we got Dawoud from Tata Projects, who's the Assistant General Manager and Head of Project Management Group, and Ashish Philip, who's Deputy Manager at Analytics Services at Tata IT. Thank you for being with us today. So, Mohan, can we begin with you? And only because I have to ask you this, with a wealth of experience of 35 years, okay, what were you thinking when the good folks at Tata Motors offered to pair you up with a reverse mentor? Did you wonder how someone with a fraction of your experience was going to mentor you?
Sure. So, well, it all started by even thinking, well, is it even real? Is it really likely to happen? And what is this that's happening now? So there was, of course, a lot of trepidation, a lot of anxiety, and also hesitation to exposing one's ignorance to someone else, someone younger. On the other side of the question, Aparna, that you asked about younger people, well, somehow that problem didn't come to me because two of three of my previous bosses have been at least 10 years younger, if not more. So both Girish and now Shailesh have been with me, and then it's been a great experience to have had younger people to work with and lots to learn from them. Surely, thank you.
Thanks, Mohan. And just staying with that, so how did you sort of decide that this is something you want to get into? And what is it that made you say this is what I'm going to do, and perhaps I want mentorship around this topic?
Yeah, sure. So once, and given that the opportunity had come up, I thought of kind of leveraging it to catch up on areas that I always wanted to, but hadn't got around to doing so, mainly because they were not kind of mainstream to my role today and to my KRAs today. So the topic that I would have liked to choose was digital. And as luck may have it, the organizing team also came up with a list of 6 or 7 topics that were being offered. And digital was one of them. So it kind of came together. And then this is something that kind of drives the way business gets done today. Most of commerce happens this way. And who would have thought at one time that you buy white goods on a digital platform, and of course cars someday in the future. So that's how it all started, and then that's how we took it forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. Ram, I'm going to ask you, I think Mohan's also just described that often, when you decide to get a mentor on something, it's often specific and situational. So in Ram's case, he said it was in Mohan's case, he said digital stuff. How did you think about what you wanted to get out of the reverse mentorship relationship? And how did you go ahead?
Yeah. So actually, I was pretty cool about it. I mean, I did not think too much. Actually, I was looking forward to at least some new initiative which I have never come across. So that was more exciting for me, as I also chose digital as a theme because, as Mohan sir said, actually Mohan sir is my boss actually. So he did not know what topic I chose. I did not know what topic he chose. And later when we spoke about, I also came to know that he also has chosen digital. Mainly because there is a lot to explore. I mean, I have got, as I was mentioning some time back, I mean, yesterday when we spoke, I have actually gained a lot by these interactions with Pabalelo. I mean, she's a very young budding talent in asset management firm in South Africa. She works in finance. And she came up with a lot of preparation, explaining me a lot of things which happen on the digital space, how the world is moving around, what people in South Africa and other places, how they go about in getting customers. And it was like a big insight for me. And then then I was very curious to see what Tata Motors is doing about that. So then I reached out to one more internal reverse mentor, I would say. We have a young talent called as Nikhil Korean, who heads the digital marketing space. So I reached out to him. First time, I have never interacted with him, but I reached out to him and then said, Nikhil, this is something I am going through, and I want to know what Tata Motors is doing about that. Can you help me with this? So he came and he took about a 2-hour session for me on digital marketing. What all Tata Motors is doing about digital. So after that, there are a lot of things which we are doing, which actually we are not knowing. And being in the product development area, it is always been a kind of a we were trying to look for more and more information on consumer insights. And through the digital tools, now we have been able to develop a template which we can actually repeat this every quarter. I mean, when we want it, and it is not very difficult to do. There is a lot of data available and a lot of analytical tools available, which was a big insight for us. And when I went and told Mohan sir about this kind of a thing and interaction with Nikhil, he told, why don't we organize this for the entire product line team? So then we got Nikhil on the call, and then he took a session for about 100 odd people. And then it is a big eye opener for many of the people within our team. And also when I went back and told Pabalelo that we have done this, and I also explained her what all Tata Motors, she was also pretty enthused. She was very excited that you guys have done this. And after that, her enthusiasm has doubled, and every time she keeps coming up with a lot of research done. She is a finance person, but she has got a lot of interest. She does a lot of research and comes up with her study every time when we discuss. So it is actually quite exciting, those discussions. So it is like a free. It was not a very formal thing where you have a target or to meet or a timelines to meet. It is you are just having fun. It is like a hobby. I mean, when you have fun, you learn more. Is something which I believe. So I mean, this is actually mentorship is actually helping us to give more insights and ideas. I mean, it is that one spark you have to find, and that one spark will ignite the flame. So it is all about this. You get into an idea, you get a spark, you ignite a flame, and then there is no end to it. I mean, it has been all around. It has been a kind of an exciting journey for me, at least personally. And of course, the learnings are also translated. I mean, so some of the things I'm also seeing how we can do this internally without even having a Bluemint initiative. I mean, we can very well do it. I mean, this only acts as a template on how we should do it, right? So those are some short thoughts from my side.
Wonderful. And it's lovely to hear that it's acted like such a force multiplier, and you've actually sort of gone in and engaged with so many more people as a result of a conversation with someone much younger. You've gone in and engaged so many other people much more perhaps junior on the hierarchy, and they're affecting the learning actually for so many more people in the organization. What a wonderful story. And I think you're being very humble where you say it's a spark, but actually it's when leaders look behind them for blind spots and find that sometimes the answer may actually lie with somebody more junior, and then proactively seek those out. So I think this is really very inspiring. I can see Dawoud and Ashish sort of smiling, and I have to ask you this. So Dawoud, I'm going to ask you. You had a wonderful journey with your mentee. I know that you and many other Bluemint folks have been very candid about it. So you've all done extremely well through your careers and lots of successes through many other things. But let's face it, mentoring a senior leader was a different matter altogether. So before you got to the start line, was there any imposter syndrome?
Thanks, Aparna. Yes, of course. I think there was that typical fair zone, like the imposter syndrome did kick in. Because like you very rightly said, right, it's one thing to work with senior leaders. It's a whole different thing, like if you actually impart some knowledge or skills to them, right? So the typical fear factor does kick in, but then something happens and the prefrontal cortex comes in and tells you that you're also a critical thinker. You need to act rationally, and you are an able human being. If you put a plan of action in place, and if you're genuine, I think the most important thing in this journey is to be genuine. If you're genuine with the other person and you take time to understand the other person as in the start, and that's a good icebreaker, I think. And thereafter, you set the expectations right to begin with. I think that'll pave the way for a better mentorship between the mentor and the mentee. I think that's what I did, and it really helped me to break the ice. And from there, it was very easy, and it's been a phenomenal experience, really.
Great. And is there a particular way that you sort of set about it? I know you came up with a list of, all of you came up with a list of topics that you could potentially mentor on. Right. Was it unnerving when your mentee sort of said, actually, this is what I want mentorship on? How did you feel? What did you, how did you think you were going to add value?
So I think the way to do it was that we agreed on subjects to discuss. And from the subjects, we narrowed down to specific topics. And what we agreed on was that you would address areas of concern which are immediate to the person. So my mentee had concerns on finance and strategy, right? Finance for non-finance people. So he had concerns around that subject. So what we did is we picked topics that would help him in his immediate area of concern, and that would draw more relevance to whatever I was trying to tell him. And I helped him with resources. I also helped him introduce to other people within the finance background who we could later get in touch with. So I think he was humbled all through the way. I mean, he enjoyed the journey as well. I think what Ram mentioned is very important here to understand is we need to enjoy the journey with a lot of free will and not compulsion. I think that's really important. If we put a lot of compulsion as a tick in the box in this, then I think that's something which will not help. We need to just enjoy the journey and the result will come.
I think that's wonderful. He said, structure, just enjoying the journey, getting to know each other, trying to see how you can best help your mentee. I think all of that has been key, and it's been wonderful to hear you say that. Ashish, what about you? How did you prepare for this journey, and how was this different to say other conversations with senior people or junior, people, in the sense if somebody comes to you for advice, how is actually the process of signing up to be a reverse mentor different?
Right, Aparna, so when it came to this reverse mentorship journey, first of all, it was a very unnerving experience for sure. I was looking forward to it, but when the time really came and I was allotted a reverse mentor, I really wanted to run, was my reaction at that point of time. And I didn't know how I would go about it and how do I deal with it. But I think that's where your mind kicks in. It's either fight or flight. So the fight mode kicked in. And I think I took it from what I had learned in Bluemint. I remembered that part about experiments, right? So I took it as an experiment, how I could do something in this way that it is unique to what Ashish is. So Ashish does things in a specific way, and that might be unique, and the leader might not be aware of things that can be done in this particular way. So I didn't want to go with a textbook approach. So when I set out to design it, I am a big fan of frameworks. So I made my own. I called it the 3D principle of reverse mentoring. The first step in that was I set out to define the problem. Thanks to the Bluemint program on how we had structured it, the first was a discussion. I sat down with my mentee, very humble people, so they were very much open to me as well. And I took the position of being vulnerable. I shared my own story of how I had come about and done things. So I think I got a lot of insights from that. And what was this specific needs of the business? So I was able to define that particular problem that I was trying to address. And then I went to the design phase where I actually sat down and thought, okay, so if I do this, if I do tell this particular person that this problem there are 10 different ways, and I wanted to play it like a movie trailer. So I didn't want to give them a textbook solution that you can go with this. I wanted to present in front of them what is called as the art of possible. I just wanted to give this is the all the things which are present and which you can leverage in your journey. So I went with those two things in mind. And I had a third principle in mind, which is keep it simple. So I could come up with, and when it's about business analytics, I could come up with a lot of jargon and I could throw it at them. But they really didn't have to do it. They had people in their team who could actually do it for them. And they just needed to know what was the best way of approaching that particular thing. So I actually use these three principles to actually design the journey. And when it came to the third step in my framework was delivering. So I had a simple principle that whatever I do, I will tell it using a story, so that it is imprinted on their own minds. And as you all know, I love stories. So somehow it just came all together, and I was able to tell them using my own life stories or things I had come across, and that's how I actually mentored them. I wouldn't still call it a mentoring journey because it was a two-way street. How much I give it to them, I think more I learned out of them. So that was my take on the mentoring. And on the second part where you told about how was it different from a regular conversation which I might have had with a leader. So I think this was quite different because it was a different organization altogether. I didn't work with that particular person in a reporting capacity or in any professional capacity. It was a new person. Definitely there were things in mind. I was like, okay, so he knows so much more than me. I was like, okay, they have a team who knows so much more than me. What am I going to do? But I think when I went into that particular conversation, like Dawoud was mentioning the point about how can you be genuine? How can you be truthful about what you can offer? So you just go into a discussion with a plain blank slate and you chart out the journey. So how do you chart out the journey actually decides it. And that's how I approach this particular conversation. No expectations in mind, and you just go out with a blank slate. So that was my take on it.
Wonderful. So it sounds like, Dawoud and Ashish, from everything you've said, a lot of homework was done, a lot of prep was done, and not perhaps just because it was a reverse mentor. Perhaps just the whole process of mentorship would involve that, but, being cognizant of the fact it is a more senior person and, appreciating some of the challenges that they face seems to be key to success. Great. Ram, I want to ask you, how do you think psychological safety was treated, in terms of how did your mentor, just help create that environment where you felt like maybe this is what, the person knows what they're talking about. This is a good place to actually put this problem on the table.
Yeah, I personally think there are two things. The first one, which I feel is you need to break the ice. I mean, in the beginning, you need to find the comfort zone of being very patient listener. I mean, we need to the mentor needs to understand about the mentee in a little bit more detail, so which helps you to connect better. And once that is done, then if you really are showing that interest, and then after the first session, I feel is very important when you connect with a mentor, because and then when you come back in the second session, and if you are genuinely interested, you will also come to the discussion on the table with some ideas, right? And that is what enthuses the mentor even more to do a bit more for you. When it is actually a two-way process. I mean, it is not that mentor will come and give you some gyan and then it is over. It is not that. It is that the mentee also need to take a little bit of interest, effort, enthusiasm, and enjoy it. And when both the people know they are enjoying this journey, and then it becomes very smooth. Dawoud also mentioned that. So it is the process is should be enjoyable. And I was mentioning today in one of the. I mean, if you have fun, you will get excellence. Joy is a hallmark of excellence in any field. I mean, it is that kind of a thing. You need to enjoy, and then you get into an excellence. If you don't have fun, you will not get the result. I mean, this is in a nutshell. This is what I can say.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to ask Mohan. Tata Motors is at the cusp of so much transformation. It sounds like the work that both you and Ram do. Actually, you have a ringside view of some of this, right, with passenger vehicles and all the excitement around it. Did your insight into, and I'm going to call it, another generation or another couple of generations, did the conversation sort of sharpen the insights that you got as not just the individual, but also as the organization goes down this path that it's embarked upon?
So to say that this opportunity of engaging with a younger person in an environment that is non-office, let's say, but all the same professional in that sense, did provide a very open window into kind of acknowledging and getting to know how younger people think and what is it that enthuses them and what is it that motivates them. I mean, I'm sure the young people that work with us are no different, and that's a learning that is very useful for the way that we deal with our own people here. So that is definitely useful. So I mean, let's say this reverse mentorship was one topic, but going beyond that, also there are several things that are required to happen in the way that we are working and the change of culture that's happening at Tata Motors. So one of the things that had started some days ago actually and has helped is to move to first name basis. So it was a big change actually that we had all grown up calling each other sir and then surnames and then Mr. and so on. So moving from there to first name basis was a big deal. Even now it's not so easy for many people, especially youngsters don't find it so easy to come up to you and then call you first name and then give a different opinion. So that's something that is required to happen, but maybe it will take us some more time. All the same, the journey is on, and we do feel that this is the right way to do stuff. It's also nice that the seniors that we have in Tata Motors are also walking the talk. So this is fine with everyone here, and it's fine with us also. So I'm sure it will take some time, but then it will percolate downwards and percolate sidewards, and everyone will then be more comfortable in doing this first step of becoming comfortable with each other and removing barriers of designations, of age, of experience, and all other types of diversity, so that we can actually come together as a team and work. So steps in the right direction, surely. So does it answer your question, Aparna, or was it a second part to it?
No, it does. It does. And I think it's also particularly relevant for Tata Power, on a similar journey and, also on the cusp of so much change and so much transformation. So it also reminds me of what Mr. Narendran had said when, he talked about reverse mentorship and all of you were present, where he said one of the first things that that I think had happened was somebody much more junior said, well, can I just call you by your name? And he said, yes, sure. And, the person said, well, but I'll be the only one doing it. And Mr. Narendra said, well, that's on you. I can't send out a memo to, the organization saying that this is what it is. So culture will, these conversations will make, small changes happen. And I think the richness from this will take some time to percolate through organizations and really help each other appreciate intergenerational differences a bit more.
Sure. So actually another part that happened was, that is happening, of course, in Tata Motors, was that we are kind of delayering. So meaning we used to have an organization that was 14, 15 steps from top to bottom, and now it's just 5. So looking at this, I mean, above you, below you, wherever you take, there is not more than 1 layer or 2 layers that you need to deal with. So that also kind of removes many barriers in terms of being able to approach someone, or being able to express yourself, or really have the freedom to do what you think is right. So I mean, all of these are, I believe, steps in the right direction to building organizations for tomorrow, and getting into shape for younger people feeling more comfortable in working in organizations like ours, which at one time, let's say, employ how many, 50,000, 1 lakh people at a time. So with such large organizations, otherwise it becomes very impersonal. So once this delayering has happened, it's really helped us.
Wonderful, and it's so lovely to hear of the whole focus of the organization to listen in to voices across all generations, and it's not just on the top that voices are heard. So much is being done to make sure that all voices matter and all voices are heard, and those sort of determine the way that the organization is. So I'm going to ask you this, Ashish. Getting a perspective from senior leaders and understanding them better, so close. How has this impacted, how you sort of appreciate their challenges and generally intergenerational differences?
All right. So Aparna, I'll have a different take on this. So if you look at a current workforce that works in all over the industry, so if you look at it from a holistic perspective, you have 4 different generations per se that are currently there. The baby movers are still around. We have the Gen X, Gen Y, and the Gen Zs. So a lot of 4 generations, and we are all different, right? There's quite a bit of differences based on the experiences that we have all been through. The Gen Z, the latest entrance into the workforce, are digital natives of sorts. So if you look at it, there is definitely some kind of a difference in how we look at things. But perhaps after my interactions with my mentees, what I have come to realize is there is really no difference. So why I say there is really no difference is because I had the advantage to be exposed to content which allowed me to learn a few things. And that's why people think that I know a bit more on that. But if you look at it from the reverse point of view, it was since I was telling it to someone and the person was curious and was enthusiastic to be listening to me, and suddenly he became an expert. So one of my mentees actually went back and started using Canva. So Aparna and I, we both know how useful Canva is for designing, right? So, and suddenly I just told him a couple of things and he went back and he did Canva. So is there a generational gap as such now? No, there's really not. So it's just that you just need to be curious and you need to be inquisitive to go and explore things out. So I I did a personal change in my life. So I thought, okay, so I know to do things in this way. What this experience taught me was I was really didn't know a few things on how the Gen Z or the people who were elder to me would actually end up doing it. So I made it a point that I was actually going to people and saying, okay, you are doing this. Can you tell me about this? And this actually started helping me. So a few people were taken aback when I started going and asking, how did you write this code? I don't know how to write it. Can you tell me how did you do it? So if you look at it, in my opinion, I don't see there's actually a generational difference per se. It's all in our mindset of how we look at things. If you have a growth mindset and if you start and you find every opportunity to be curious and to learn, I think there's really no difference. We all, at the end of the day, we're all doing the same work and we're all trying to make an impact for a purpose. That's my take on the generational differences.
Touche, well said, and so glad to actually hear everyone in the room echo similar thoughts with that. Just appreciating other people's perspectives, across generations, really helps. Look at blind spots and leverage our own potential. So this is wonderful to actually be a part of this conversation. Dawoud, I'm going to ask you. Do you feel like you had a different or a better view of organizations and leaders via this process? And what has it taught you?
So what I would say is that I think I echo exactly what Ashish has said, right? So in terms of there being no generational gap, just the fact that one is in a position to impart a different knowledge set, and therefore that's the difference. What I would take back to my organization in terms of feeling the difference, I would say that probably one has to be more empathetic in the journey. That's something that would really help. That's something I would want to carry forward in my organization as well. It's something which is largely present here, but something we can really build upon. Something that I would like to add to, I missed saying before, is I think it's about elimination of barriers. We have set up barriers in our mindset, like we've grown in a particular mindset, and that mindset has become a part of our habit. If we're able to eliminate that mindset, I think we can change the result. And these are our limiting beliefs. If we're able to overcome these limiting beliefs, I think we can change who we are and also change the result. I think this is something that leadership should carry forward in their respective organizations, is what I feel.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dawoud. Again, it's so lovely to hear everyone resonate with just how much they've taken away from embracing differences, realizing that perhaps that's where our strengths lie, and that's how we can all leverage potential. So I'm going to ask my last question, and I've already had lots of comments come in. If you have questions that you'd like to ask anyone, I'm for the audience here, please do put it on chat, and we can take questions after this. So just before that, last question to both Mohan and Ram. What would your advice be to other mid-senior level managers and leaders who may now be thinking about embarking on a journey with a reverse mentor? So what would your overall advice be? And is there any key learnings or things you'd like them to bear in mind?
Yeah. Okay. So maybe just chill, be open about it, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the experience and gain out of it. Do put in some effort to prepare on the topics that you are interested in, so that you can have meaningful conversations. Even if that seems a very heavy advice, it helps. Overall, it's been a great learning for me, and I'm sure it will be a great one for you too. And we'll all come enriched out of this, and hopefully we'll also have lifelong bonds with the people that we are interacting with now. I, for one, I'm still in touch with my mentor, and we do exchange notes. We hope to catch up as many times as we can, even otherwise. So, thank you.
Wonderful. Ram, over to you.
I don't have anything very specific, but what I would say is, if you are able to pick up a topic which you think will feel it useful, so that can be the first step. But that is not necessary. You can also go brand. You can pick up a topic which you don't know at all. Or the way digital marketing probably we picked up was because probably we live in a domain where we don't know and where we are using it but we don't know. We thought maybe this is a good opportunity for us to understand that. So I mean, if you are really interested in something, then it becomes very easy. Otherwise, if you want to learn something, that can be the second step. Otherwise, just go for it. I mean, and experience the process of reverse mentoring. That itself will be a learning experience rather than the topic itself. One is getting to know how you will be getting a mentee who is at a very younger than you, and then going through this process itself is learning. Other than that, that specific topic where you will get some insights and ideas, so that will be a big thing. So, and then it becomes a responsibility probably later to how to multiply this thing, as Aparna mentioned.
Great. So you both again touched upon just making sure that we continue learning across generations and deriving maximum benefit from that. Great. So thank you so much for your candid insights, sharing your journeys. I think the richness of the conversations, the shift in perspectives, and honestly just embracing differences to take all these actions together. You've used the diversity, not just, I think, to propel yourselves forward, but also your teams forward. And this has been hugely inspiring. And hopefully, I think as many more of us, many more of our companies, sort of embrace diversity across generations. Maybe they all also embark on their own reverse mentorship journeys. It doesn't ever have to be a structured, intervention or anything. It could just be somebody you work with, over coffee to just really speak to them and put them in the advisory chair to ask them for their opinion on something so that we're able to embrace difference. So I also want to say that, if you are a leader with 15 years of experience or more, I know she's got a link that she can paste on the chat. And if you want to, sign up to get a reverse mentor, we'd be happy to also help that happen so that some of these conversations can go much further and we can see so many more, shifts in mindset happen. So I also, at this point, if there's questions, there's many comments that have come in, and overall, everyone's been very appreciative, Mohan and Ram, of your candor, and, of the fact that you were brave enough to actually do this and just that you've got out of it. There is a question that says, how comfortable can the leaders be with reverse mentorship? Rupesh, I know you've asked this question. Is it to the mentors or to the mentees that you'd like to ask to? My sense is actually he's asking the mentees. So, Mohan or Ram, would one of you like to take that?
Can you repeat, please? Missed one word in between.
Sure. He said, how comfortable can leaders be with reverse mentorship?
I mean, it's entirely up to us, isn't it? So it's just like having let's say a younger sibling or a younger relation that you would normally otherwise be very comfortable with. So this is very similar to that. And if, by the way, someone knows a little more than you on a particular subject, well, all the more better. But even if that's not the point, it may be that one would like to know how to deal with people who are, let's say, 20 years younger than you and what makes them tick. Be a good opportunity to take up, please.
Great, thank you. And I know Dawoud has also put his hand up. I think he wants to add to your comment.
That was by accident, Aparna.
No worries. But great. And someone else has said, is this a learning process spread across Tata Group companies? Well, many of our companies have actually been a part of it via the Bluemint program for the mentors. Tata Steel has had its own reverse mentorship journey and have really been sort of the forerunners in making these conversations happen. Several leaders across the group have embarked on them informally. This is a formal process that is happening just so that both mentors and mentees can come together, and hence the sign up form if you'd like to be part of the formal process. Great. So there's no more questions coming in. A huge thank you to you all, Dawoud, Ashish, Mohan, Ram, for being here with us today, speaking to us about, and really reversing the roles, right? And speaking about embracing the intergenerational differences to really leverage, our own full potential. So a huge thank you to all of you. The Tata Power theme for the month is "Love is the Air." Sorry, is "Love is All We Need." Song still playing in my head. And I think, again, as Dr. Sinha, Himal, Purnima, Jyoti all talked about a couple of days ago, it takes so many different formats at work. So one key format is really embracing differences and learning from each other to keep growing. So what a wonderful conversation, for a Friday evening, lots of food for thought. But there, and I was about to end, but there is another question which I feel like just benefits your responses. And the person's asked that, isn't it possible that the mentors and mentees learn together, as a single subject? And anyone who'd like to take that? Ashish has his hand up.
Yeah. So, Aparna, why I raised my hand up is because I actually had an experience like this. So one of my mentees actually was wanting to do some kind of a branding strategy for his department. So, and I don't come from a branding kind of a setup. I come from pure data and marketing kind of a thing. So I actually had an experience where I actually had to figure out what I can actually tell him, which he himself won't know because he's such a senior person. He might have had more exposure to branding activities and marketing activities than I might have ever had. So I had this learning experience where I actually went and I had one principle in my mind. I'll make it so simple that I can explain it to anyone. So I think I borrowed that from Richard Feynman saying that you make it so simple that you can explain it to a child. And I actually did that principle. So I won't ever be an expert in that particular field, but I could crystallize and break it down into a few actionable things. So the underlying principle being you will have a few topics which you won't be an expert on. But then are you ready to learn? If he wanted an expert as such, he would have possibly gone to a consulting firm, right? He wouldn't have come to me. I was in that position that I could I could bring in that childlike curiosity, I would say. And I could bring in a different perspective, an outsider's perspective of having a frame of reference which is beyond that particular organization and keep myself open to the best practices across the globe. So I would say just go with the flow in that particular perspective and just try and learn whatever you can and keep it simple. Just don't overcomplicate it than it already has to. That's my take.
Well said, Ashish. It doesn't have to be complicated. We can learn a single topic. It can be multiple topics, and it really is just how hungry we are to learn.
Yeah.
Dawoud, I know you've got a hand up, but I'm going to pose one more question, so you can take that one as well. There seem to be a lot of comments coming in for the both of you as well. How do you feel comfortable mentoring such senior leaders? Is another question that's been asked.
Okay, so the previous one first. I think it's a journey where you both end up learning. It's not just the mentee or the mentor. So just to give you an example so that it's probably well understood. So while I was discussing strategy and finance with my mentee, so he was from a different industry, right? So I have to draw on relevance as to how that is applicable to his industry. So in the process, I'm actually learning as well. So the level of learnings might be different on a relative scale, but I do believe that there are mutual learnings that happen in the process. It's just how you look at it. Now, in terms of the second question that came in is how comfortable you were. I think, like I said, it's the mindset, right? So the first meeting is tough. I do completely agree. The fear kicks in, the imposter syndrome kicks in. But once you're through with that first stage, you realize that you are two individuals, right? You're two individuals, and each wants to know, right? If the other person is willing and has accepted the fact that he wants to learn and is curious to learn, I think you just enjoy the journey thereafter and you're very comfortable. The first session is very important, like Ram said. And if you manage the first 15, 20 minutes very well, I think thereafter it's like a cakewalk.
Okay, I know thank you. We're 1 minute over time. So there are a lot of questions and comments coming in. So I am going to ask this last question, and then maybe if you do have more questions, please do feel free to email them over to Tripti, and we'll make sure that they reach the mentors or the mentees. So mentors, what are your learnings from the respective mentees? As they're extremely senior, how do you stop yourself and do the role of a mentor? I think that's a good question, because it's easy to sometimes forget where lines are drawn and where they begin.
Ashish, you want to take that, because I answered to. I don't want to know you not to speak.
Yeah. Okay. So I think when it comes to how do you deal with the mentors and already knowing that they are so much senior to you? So I think what I'll always carry with me is they are senior to you, but then you go in as an equal in that particular conversation. You really don't go in like, okay, I'm going to talk to someone who is 5 steps above me in the ladder. If you go in with that kind of a mindset, you're already not going to give your best, is what I always felt. I personally respected the age gap that I had with my mentor. He was senior to me. I always had that respect for that. But then you need to be comfortable to give your best, right? You just can't go in a conversation where you're already at the back foot and you try and hit a front foot shot, as you say it in cricket. So you can't hit a shot at back foot, right? So you have to go it with the perspective like, okay, so he's here to because I can offer a value. I told him my first answer. So I was always trying to make myself comfortable first before I could actually make my mentee comfortable. So I said I would do it in uniquely what Ashish can bring into the table. So what Dawoud could bring in, he did it in his own way. So we all have a different way of delivering content, and we are comfortable in that particular thing. So that's how we actually develop the comfort. But like Dawoud also mentioned, the comfort starts from the point where you have your first discussion. Your first discussion, if everything is laid on the table, then I don't think that's stopping anything. And you really don't have to worry about. I was always looking for my next discussion. I still send him a WhatsApp more often than not. So it's a different experience altogether, and you would always enjoy that particular journey.
Yeah,
what I also think is interesting. Sorry, carry on, Dawoud.
Just to add a line to Ashish is that I think you've got to learn to add multiple hats, right? Sometimes you're on this side of the table, sometimes on the other side of the table, even at work. So I think you've got to pick that up to learn to wear multiple hats and then act accordingly.
Wonderful. So I was just going to say, very prophetically, in a conversation around appreciating the differences between the generations, more questions have actually been asked in the chat box to to the more junior mentors or as opposed to senior leaders. So I think that itself is it's interesting, because everyone wants to get an insight into just understanding how to really bridge this and embrace these differences. So thank you for that. Again, a huge thank you. Thank you to the Tata Power team for inviting us for this fireside chat. Thank you, Anupama. Thank you, Adamya and Hitesh, for your support today. And we look forward to more such conversations. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. And thanks for organizing this. It's a pleasure for us.